to a certain element.
That's what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah. Although I have to be cautious about what I say about that.
Okay, you're not recruiting.
Yeah, because you don't want anyone to be like, oh, hang on, he's working with them. They must be in the shit.
It's that thing if they're not. Yeah.
I'm glad we had this chat. I would have mentioned that.
Yeah.
It's in live, right?
In his face, like,
That's the one thing we won't touch on at all.
Okay.
Really, other than like the basic learnings.
Enough said. So are you driving this whole thing yourself then? Is it already recording?
Yeah. It's all recorded now. Yeah.
Ah, right.
And then so I'll clap us in, do the intro, and then we'll jump straight in.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Welcome back to another episode of RecTalk. I'm your host, Nitin Sharma, founder of RecTools.io. You should know by now that RecTools is the only whole-of-market recruitment supplier directory for your recruitment agency, your talent acquisition team, and or your business itself. So if you're looking for a new CRM, somewhere to store your candidate data, if you're looking for a new marketing business, if maybe you're looking for a new recruitment website, maybe you're looking for a automation tool that's going to help you reach out to more candidates or more clients, get over to RecTools.io, have a look. It's a free-to-use directory, and there's a whole range of tools for you to have a play around with. Today's episode is an interesting one, actually, because we've done a lot of episodes recently and kind of this year about marketing and sort of sales and how you go to market with your brand and with your startup or with your agency. And there's a lot to kind of unpick within that. But one of the things that we've never really spoken about until today's episode is branding and the importance of getting that initial branding piece right. We had one episode with Mixos Group who were going through a rebrand at that time. And it wasn't until then that I started thinking, actually, yeah, these guys are really taking this seriously. So either somebody has sold them the dream or branding is something that we just haven't really thought about very much in the recruitment sector. And so to kind of unpick that and give us the real lowdown on the importance of branding and stuff, my guest today is Simon Glenn. You'll know him from being the founder of BrandBoy, of Meeow Networking, which I'm a huge advocate for and fan of. And then you also are involved in the Raised startup as well, right? And alongside him is Scott Kirby. You know him from previous episodes. He's a fractional CFO for RecTools. He's involved in Raised, and he's involved in pretty much anything that's exciting in the recruitment sector right now. This guy's got his fingers in, and then he tells me about, and then I get involved in. So
you've been on here before. You didn't tell me that, did you?
There you go. So guys, thank you very much. This is it's a real pleasure to host you both today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Let's jump straight into it. Branding, is that not just going cute little logo? I know a guy. In fact, my nephew just finished a course at college. He can probably throw someone up. He's good at Photoshop. And get on with it.
Nitin, fuck off. Come
on. I teed that up for you, though. You know what I mean? Like, No, I've done this before.
I hate the word logo, actually. I don't use it anymore. I'd rather pretentiously use the phrase brand mark. Just so I don't have to use the word logo. Because people, the brand mark, the badge. Because people think, still, so many people think that branding is a logo and some colours. And if you think about it, a logo on its own, you can't put a logo everywhere. I mean, we've got logos here, but they're in very isolated spaces. You know, on a website, for instance, you might have the logo on the bar that's attached to the top, but most of the time it's not. What communicates your brand when the logo isn't present?
Okay. That's where the copyright and stuff comes in, I suppose, isn't it?
And the imagery that surrounds it. I drove through the centre of Leeds the other day, and there's those video screens everywhere now. And there was, I was quite away from it. I was a good quarter of a mile away from this banner, this video screen, and I couldn't read. I was far enough away not to be able to read what it said on this ad, but from the surrounding graphics and the colours, I knew that was a British gas advert, right?
Right, yeah, I hear.
And by the time I got to it, it came round again. didn't even have a logo. It's the first time I've seen an ad of any description, whether it be video screens or web banners or whatever, it doesn't matter, that didn't actually carry a logo at all. I've had clients in the past ask me to put 2 logos on one A4 ad. That was daft. But I've never actually seen anything without a logo at all. And British Gas had the balls.
But the font, the colour, the presentation of it was
just going British Gas. British Gas. You knew it was British Gas a mile away. That is what I'm talking about. That's a brand. That's a brand where everything that surrounds the brand mark communicates your brand as well.
So,
and I'm talking about visual brand now, of course. I'm not talking about hello, answering the phone, copywriting, all that, all the strategy and the depth that brand is. Even how your vans, if you've got vans going out there, even the way the van drivers drive the vans is part of your brand. What I'm talking about now is the visual part of it.
I'm with you. But so how does that then translate into a saturated competitive market? So whether you're a recruitment agency in, I don't know, the construction sector or engineering, where there's 6 or 7 in a 5-mile radius of where you are, right? Or if you're in the RecTech space and you're a CRM vendor and you're one of 150 CRMs that's out there right now, or a payroll company, do you know what I mean? Like, that's hard to do then, to distinguish yourself as a standout brand. When you're a clothing brand, it's different. When you're a brand that's up on screen like your British Gas and that kind of thing, you've got money, you've got consistency in advert and in sort of media that you're putting out. Whereas for recruitment agencies and for, say, payroll businesses, their branding is basically done on the phones when they're selling their stuff, right?
In the recruitment space and the CRM space and all that kind of thing, your branding isn't going to sell anything. In the fashion space, that's Von Dutch, for instance. That's going to sell the shit out of it. But in a business sense and in the commercial world, the branding is never going to sell anything. The branding is there, yes, to make you recognisable to a certain degree. Now, again, in the fashion space, you can be a lot more daring and reinvent the wheel if you want. Probably in the recruitment space and most of the service-based businesses, it's anything that gets a little bit daring gets a little bit scary. And bearing in mind that branding is all about confidence building. If you exude confidence through your branding, then you project confidence into your audience. Okay. And in many cases, I actually have a portion of my branding process that analyzes whether the client I'm working with, and it doesn't have to be in the rec sector, any sector, whether there would be an advantage or turning a saturated market into an advantage. There's a shortcut, shortcut towards understanding sometimes. If you ape another big brand, like, for instance, I worked with a fairly large taxi firm in Leeds, and they were looking to combat the rise of Uber with their own app. They wanted more people using their own app. They had a terrible name and they had terrible branding. So I renamed them and I rebranded them, and I used all the money and all the time and all the good effort that Uber had put into marketing a taxi-based app, and I drew that into this business. It's called Zip, by the way, into this brand. So kind of borrowing off the understanding that a big brand has already put out in the market.
Right, I see.
So
yeah, so it's almost like
look similar, so people understand. Oh, it's a taxi firm.
That's what that is.
It's an app. It's an app for a taxi firm.
So in the same way, I suppose, in the recruitment sector. So I was in the accountancy finance recruitment space for a long time, and so you would have, businesses that were sort of almost grounded in accountancy and finance as their core business, like the Michael Page or the Robert Walters and the Robert Harves, who all had the same sort of Times New Roman font. It was a two-worded, do you know what I mean? Like your Michael Page or Robert Walters and Robert Harve in similar way.
That comes down to audience identification. If you are looking for looking to appeal to
Yeah.
an older, a more traditional market, you know, and maybe, you know, you have to do the background on that. Are the people that are going to be making the decisions? What age group are they in?
Yeah.
You know, what background do they come from? Are they from the old school? Will they appreciate that? Will they warm to that? If they're not, then it doesn't matter what's come before. You know, you might think that you need to look like that brand, but if the people that you're trying to get hold of are the younger people within that business, and that what they're used to seeing, or what they would warm to, what they would be drawn to is something different from that, you need to bear that in mind. It's all about audience. Who is the audience? And the audience isn't you. So I always say, if a client says to me, my favourite chop,
I like that. Yeah.
don't give a flying fuck what your favourite anything is. It's not about you. I mean, it might just so happen that your favourite colour is exactly the colour that we should be using, but that is not the
That's
starting
not the
point.
reason we've done it.
It's
Yeah.
about audience.
I see.
Who
Okay.
and by the way, a lot of people say to me, well, but we don't just want to talk to those people. No, absolutely. When you are crafting your branding, when you're choosing your colours, when you're choosing your font, when you're considering your audience, you're just talking about the top level, the low hanging fruit, the people that you know are going to love your service. They are going to eat it up with a spoon. Make sure it appeals to them. Don't create something that completely discounts everybody else.
You're never going to, but yeah, in exactly the same way, you're never going to create something that appeals to everybody.
Exactly.
Right?
It's impossible.
That's the kind of,
It's impossible. Yeah.
No, and I think one point, just chip on that, is the recruitment industry is so competitive. More and more businesses start up every day, competing with each other. So brand can be a really strong asset in terms of being able to stand out and distinguish yourself. Because besides that, a recruitment industry is people, it's a brand, and it's delivering on promises that you make, whether it's to candidates or clients. In its simplest form, brand plays a massive role in that journey and how one agency can distinguish itself from another, or a platform and a CRM provider. And the execution is key.
Yeah, and I can't state it clearly enough. Brand will never sell anything in this service space. It won't sell anything, but bad branding will guarantee you don't sell things.
so give us some examples of that then. What give us examples of some bad branding? That's easy for you're in the game, yeah. If I'm a recruitment business owner, or if I'm a payroll company sat watching this, and I'm going, I don't even know if I've got a good brand. I don't even understand it. So I accept your point. It's important. I accept your point that it won't sell something, but it can prevent me from making sales. What the fuck's a bad brand? What does that look like then?
Well, if you're not a designer and you've created it yourself, I mean that's ground zero. Let's assume that it's not doing the job straight away. If that's the case, my advice to anybody is to get somebody who isn't attached to the business, isn't you, obviously, isn't a designer, you know, to look at the branding and give you an honest, if preferably a stranger, you know, let them give you an honest appraisal on how that represents your service. You know, if they are somebody that knows you, they know the product, they know the service, they know the niche, whatever, then get them to tell you what they think of it. It's very difficult to say what's bad branding without seeing it, but absolutely must go through a process of thinking and planning before you start putting pen to paper, mouse to screen, whatever, and work out. I always go through a process which is why are you in business in the first place? What prompted that to start? Are there particular driving factors apart from money? Obviously, everybody's trying to make a buck, but what motivates you? What else do you want to achieve? Is it contributing to society? Is it doing something in a different way because you can see an opportunity for it to be better for some people? Even what your exit strategy might be, you know, just think about it now. It doesn't mean you have to stick to it, but if you are wanting to build a huge business, bear that in mind, because then you need to think about whether it's going to be saleable when you step away. Don't use your own name, perhaps. You know, all these kind of things.
I see, yeah.
Then I'll move on to what it is you do, and that doesn't mean the nuts and bolts of how you go about business, because that would bore the arse off most people, even people that want to buy from you. What I mean is, what are the benefits? What comes out at the other end?
Yeah.
What is going to sell your service or your niche or your USP to the client? What is your USP?
So how does that all fit in with branding, though?
Because we need to create a plan, or in my case, when I go through this process with a business, I can already feel it or see it coming together. You know, you start to identify the audiences. In fact, that's one of the next stages. So there's what is what you do. How do you do that? How do you achieve the benefits that we've talked about in the what section? Then who. That is the audience. Now we need to think about exactly who those low-hanging fruits are. And we want a primary audience, who are the absolute top 10 buyer. Secondary audience, tertiary audience, if you have them, and make sure that what we're creating is going to appeal to them, as I've said. Then there's who else, which is your competition. So there's always something to learn from what your competition's doing, even from the way they look. And then I move into a stage which I call approachable authority. Every brand needs an element of approachability, i.e., we're friendly, come and talk to us, we're going to help you, we're going to look after you. And authority, we are the shit, we are the best people to work with, we're the safest pair of hands you could find.
And you want your brand to exude that, both of those.
And each
elements.
type of business, and it doesn't mean that, RecTalk, recruitment has this approachability authority, and I don't know, the food and drink industry has this. It's about the individual. It's about the individual business. It's about the individual people within the business. If it's a very people-led business, if it's a very MD-led business, for instance, then it should encompass part of the personality or represent the personality that people are going to get when they meet up. And I have a kind of like a graphic for the people over 40, a graphic equalizer style feeling or graph in my mind. So approachability and authority. If you take 100% and you work out whether the authority should be higher than the approachability. So if you were an arms dealer, for instance, just to use a really extreme example, then your authority would be through the roof, and your approachability.
Yeah, you don't really want that to be your. Yeah.
Forget it. But if you're a children's nursery, then your approachability has to be right up the top. We need to use lovely soft colours, lovely soft shapes, lovely soft fonts, lovely soft language. And your authority, although you need some authority because you're giving your kids to them.
Yeah.
They're looking after people's
kids.
Yeah, but
the authority needs to exude trust, not we tell you.
No, exactly.
I mean?
It's the confidence side of it. The authority is the confidence side of it. But even a children's nursery needs a little bit of authority because, they've got to
And that's a tough one for recruitment businesses, I suppose, because you almost kind of want both, don't you, really?
Yeah.
If I'm a recruitment business that's trying to make a name for myself, or I'm trying to break in with a range of clients in a very specific niche, I want both the approachability factor within my branding, but also I want there to be an element of these guys know their shit. These are the people to go to, right?
Well, you think about it, it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about appealing to the right audience. If you are recruiting CFOs in London, that is your entire market, then your authority needs to be damned high, and your approachability can take a back seat. You can use your blacks, you can use your dark blues, you can use your more angular typefaces and create that strength and solidity. And in some cases, longevity. We've been here a long time. That can be communicated through your branding. But if you are recruiting nursery nurses,
it needs to speak to a different audience.
Whatever. And you want the client who's wanting the recruit in there to be drawn to it, and the recruit themselves as well. That approach to the CFO branding, that's not going to cut the mustard there. You're going to have people screaming, running to the hills. So it's always about audience. Who's your audience?
And I think just picking up on that, one of the particular examples obviously we see a lot of is there's a lot of rec tech products out there that go on this journey of trying to raise capital. And the problem with that is we all know a lot of, apart from angels and some high profile individuals in the sector, a lot of funds and that don't necessarily back recruitment and HR tech in the way they do. So what is really important in those examples is that when you're putting together a deck and you're personifying what your brand is to a complete third party that may not be interested in the first example, that it can really jump out and bring your business to life. And that's where brand becomes so important in terms of how do you distinguish this pitch deck versus that one. And that can be a real visual personification of what that brand is, because it is a challenge. Raising capital is hard as it is for most people, particularly in the current market. But there are some great products out there. I think one of the things I always look at is when someone describes a business to you and then you go onto their website or you look at the material, it comes up as something completely different. And you go, okay.
Yeah, it leaves you with a different impression.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because that leans into exactly what you're saying, Si, which is around that whole, the why and the culture and really trying to understand that business, right? Because in the business owner's own words, you really get an understanding of what they're trying to go for and what they're aiming for. But then, as you say, Scott, when you jump on their website and you go, didn't seem or feel that way. This guy made it feel like this, or this person described it in such a way, and I've come on expecting to feel that, continue that kind of emotive journey of, I get what these guys are about, and I've landed on it, and I'm kind of gone, really doesn't look or feel or taste anything like what this guy said it was going to be.
There's a great example. I was talking to, I was invited actually to a Christmas do last Christmas in Leeds by a recruitment business that was opening an office in Leeds. The main office was in Edinburgh. They got offices all over the country. They actually got an office in Thailand before they got one in Leeds, but they were about they were about to open in Leeds. And a few of the staff had come down to have this little Christmas soiree that I ended up at. And we were talking to them, and they told us they'd just shifted from quite a broad focus on recruitment to the software development and SaaS tech market, and solely concentrate on that.
Specifics,
And as soon as the lady I was speaking to said that, I jumped straight on their website, and it was only on my phone. And she said they'd just been through a rebrand to switch focus to this market. And as soon as I looked at it, and I didn't hold back, I'm afraid. I had very little Christmas spirit that day. I actually laughed. I went, oh. And she was like, "Oh, what?" She wasn't the person that had overseen this branding project, so I was all right to kind of take it to task a bit. But they absolutely hadn't considered their audience. The branding and the website in total, actually, when I looked at it on the mobile, just wouldn't appeal to a software development, UX designers, project managers. Market. The typeface they'd chosen for the logo was from the 1980s. The colours were insipid. The layout was on the website. Forget the branding for a second. The layout on the website, just they were trying to appeal to people that do what I was looking at every day. They make websites. They create SaaS businesses. They create the thing I was getting from this
in a way,
business.
you are the target.
And it looked crap.
Yeah.
And I was like, it probably would have worked for the construction industry, for instance, because they're not in that space. But they were trying to sell to people that make the thing that they were trying to get them to look at.
Yeah.
And it
Which,
just
if you take it back to
work.
your authority and likability scale, you're like, well, you've got no authority with me whatsoever.
Exactly.
And you're not likable either, really, because I do what you're trying to attract, and this is not attractive.
Do you know what I said to her? I said, what that communicates to your audience is we didn't even bother to hire one of you guys to make this for us.
Yeah.
It's so true.
But
we're that cheap.
That's it.
We don't even
Generally
use our own
speaking, what that
candidates.
is because I've done a bit of mentoring with recruitment agencies, and AS did the same thing, right? In that you go from a generalist recruitment model to a specific or a niche, right? And I find the trend is that they tend to go where the money is, not where their understanding or specialisms are.
Okay.
So what's obviously at that point has happened is, SaaS seems to be taking off.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to fucking do now. We're going to do that. An example of a business
like
I think
Man
they've got
United
it really, really well is I was at their offices doing a podcast there, OX7, right? So they were a generalist recruitment agency based in Oxfordshire, and they kind of dabbled in the rec-to-rec space, and were like, well, hang on, we're quite good at this. And then they kind of looked at, so I was talking to Will, the owner, and he sort of was like, look, we spend a lot more of our time, and we enjoy spending our time making piss-take TikToks about how shit recruitment agencies do their jobs, and we're like kind of playing characters and that kind of thing. Because number one, it seems to be working and getting traction, but number two, we are actually getting business out of it. And so he was like, I had to make a decision. Our rec-to-rec market was starting to really take off. Our generalist stuff was drying up and not really doing that great, short of kicking the can down the road. And so we completely pivoted to rec-to-rec and then doubled down on, right, we need to dedicate all of upstairs to a proper studio and get somebody in who constantly is filming content and is writing scripts and that kind of thing. And the guys go up and they'll film. And that's part of their business development. They're part of their kind of activity for the day is, yes, making phone calls and registering candidates and all that sort of stuff. But they also have half an hour to 2 hours worth of filming every day that they have to go and do because that works. And that's a perfect example of a business that's kind of gone, we're really good at this. We get that. It seems to be working. Let's just double down and do that, but do it properly rather than, again, phone it in and half-arse it till, it stops working. And
And was there a branding change required to make that leap?
So they stayed because their branding was
fine as it was.
Because their business name and their branding was sort of, dare I say it, generic anyway, right? OX7 recruitment specialists, that kind of thing. Just adding in rec-to-rec specialists kind of did the trick for them, right? But I'm knowing Will as I do, I'm sure there's a rebrand in the works somewhere at a certain point. You know what I mean?
What I mean is, did they feel that they needed to in order to appeal to a different market? Sounds like they were close enough together to maintain the brand as it was. But it sounds like what they did do, they altered their brand.
And their brand voice.
Hang on. Quite significantly by the sound of it, by doing these videos.
Yeah.
And doubling down on that will have shifted the brand perception. Yeah. And that's getting away from the brand identity for a second. That's getting into reputation. It's getting into recognition and the personality of the brand will be coming through in those videos.
But that's all part of brand as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that can spin out of the thinking that I talked about. About your audience appeal. If you've got a very young, dynamic, energetic audience, then the TikTok stuff's going to go down down a storm, isn't it? And that is something that will spin out of that thinking.
And I think just again coming back to another like practical example of this is like those rec techs that are trying to raise funding is most of those businesses set up people who've been in the industry for a long time. They're used to speaking to other recruiters. It's about taking their tone of voice and realizing, let's assume these people know nothing about recruitment and the way recruitment works, and make sure the message is speaking to that audience, because that is not your traditional audience when you're building a brand and the way you communicate your business. This is very much specific to an audience where I want to engage these people because I want them to be interested in backing me, my journey, and how we're going to raise capital. And that's really key in that example, that when you're looking at all these different products that try and stand out, all of which are trying to raise capital, they need to make sure they're speaking a language someone else can listen to.
It's funny, we've all seen it, right? Where in sort of that kind of startup space, right? We've all seen it where we see somebody's got investment or a business has announced, oh, we've just raised this much and we've raised that much. And immediately we kind of go, what? For that?
I only do that every day.
No, yeah, but do you know what I mean? And then we kind of move on because we think, oh, I'm just being salty here, right? And we just sort of start, shut up, get on with it. Like, like, good for them.
What terrible human beings.
Yeah, and you do, but you do, right? You do. And then you go, and then the reality hits and you're like, oh, Joe, fair play to them, well done. But you don't even for a second, well, you aside, most people don't really go, they must have really got their branding on point. Do you know what I mean? Like that is the like you said, the branding won't sell, but it will cost you. But I think that what the branding does above all else is opens you a window that you otherwise wouldn't have.
Absolutely.
People look at your product or service or what it is you're doing if you're catching their eye, and you will catch their eye with something that stands out from the norm of the shit that you're in.
And actually, they'll look at you, what you do, through the lens of of the way you portray yourself. You know, if you don't give that confidence, even to an investor, you know, an investor, anybody that's got the money to invest, whether an angel, a high net worth, certainly in the VC world, they'll understand the power of branding. And if you haven't got that covered, professionally, you know, and I know it costs money, but it's like you wouldn't go into business without you know, a good accountant. You wouldn't do all these things.
But as cheesy as it sounds, so does not doing it, right?
Yeah,
that costs you just as much, maybe more.
Yeah, and you know, the old adage about a business being like a jumbo jet. You know, if you don't put enough thrust into it, it'll never get off the runway. But once it's up, it can cruise. You know, that there's never been a truer statement as far as I'm concerned. And yes, it's front loaded with cost, but if you think of your brand as the foundations in a house, if you don't put the foundations down, that bugger's going to fall over.
It's funny you say that, right? I'll share a personal experience in that I know someone who set up a recruitment agency about this time last year, maybe sort of towards the end of last year. And I know that person's client base quite well. And having caught up with a handful of those people in that TA space, the feedback I got was, he's put no effort in his website. He's put no effort in his logo. It looks like something he's just literally clicked off one of those free logo generators. Yeah. And, you know, it just seems and feels really cheap. And then the feedback was, when we were dealing with your old business, it felt a lot more of a proper, like, this is, you know, we're here.
Safe pair of hands.
Yeah, that's it. We're here for the long run. We've thought about this. We've thought about that. We've thought about the way we register our candidates. We've thought about our web presence and everything else.
We haven't just set it up overnight.
That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And multiple people have kind of, that deal with this person have fed that back to me and kind of been like, it just feels a bit cheap and a bit like, here today, gone tomorrow. Like, yeah, I'm just here for a cup. I'm only here for a cup of tea, sort of thing. Fire out a few invoices and I'm gone.
And just think for a second, put yourself in the shoes of anybody in that situation that's created a business or is portraying themselves in that way. Just think how difficult every day is for them, because they can sell, you know, in a networking situation, they meet people at events or whatever, can sell themselves so fabulously well.
Yeah.
And then I don't care who they are. You give them a business card. Even if you don't give them a business card, you connect with them on LinkedIn, whatever it is, whatever the avenue is, they will look at your website.
Absolutely.
If you don't have a website, they'll think you don't bloody exist.
Yeah.
that you were some interloper.
Yeah.
And if you do have a website,
it's like Google My Business.
Yeah.
When there's a business that hasn't got it doesn't show up on Google My Business, I'm immediately like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's on there. Why are you not?
Well, I think there's two
You
types
have to
though,
almost
isn't
have to choose not to be on there.
There's no boots on the ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
That means they can just.
Yeah.
They can just disappear like a fart in the wind.
Either that, or people that just. I think that the only exception to that is where people just trade purely on their reputation and their relationships of referrals. Which,
but then I'd already know you, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't need to Google you.
No, exactly.
And that's the point. Is if you're trying to build a brand around what you do, you can only really rely on recommendations and referrals for so long, because that's where then your business and your personal brand play a big part in people knowing more about who you are and your network being comfortable in referring you out. And once you kind of in that sort of networking and referral space, you've got the people that you're closest to, and then you've got your wider circle, and then you have an even wider circle to that, right? That sort of extremity, they're the ones that will Google you and look at, oh, look, I like Scott, I like Simon, that's fine. But if they're telling me to deal with this guy who I don't really know, I'm not connected to, I've never heard of him before, I need to do some form of validation. Let me just go online and have a quick look.
Even a warm referral, even a really warm referral, can be shot in the ass by the referee.
Poor brand.
Referee. The referee looking at a website and thinking, Christ almighty, they've
I just think it's that mindset everyone goes through, don't they? If anyone said, "Oh, you're going to check out this person," the first response is, even if someone has said, "Go and talk to this person," you always go and look, don't you? You go and look for some validation.
Yeah.
Oh, does it make sense to me? Oh, well, that's not quite what you said. You do. I don't quite understand the distinction between the two, but yeah, it's so important.
I find it interesting how many recruitment businesses have a somewhat of a brand, right? In that they've got their branding, they have a logo, they have a website that matches, they have LinkedIn pages which have banners that match the logos and that kind of thing. And then they have staff who work for them that don't have that branding or any mention of, do you know what I mean? Sort of that I work here. I'd like your thoughts on that, because I'm a big advocate for personal branding, but I do think there needs to be there needs to remain some tether back to the business that you work for. Because if you're a business, especially in recruitment, and you're encouraging your guys to build their personal brand, you kind of want that personal brand to rub off on your own business brand, right? And you want that kind of business to sort of filter back upstream. You don't want these guys going off and becoming like standalone, amazing, like highly connected, networked people that are then going to go off and disappear, and you're sitting there going, well, that was good. Who else can I put through the next academy for this?
Yeah.
You know?
I absolutely believe, I might be old school, but I absolutely believe that employees, members of the team, should be permanent advocates for the business that they're working for. If they were on a podcast, if they were on a podcast like this, they were being interviewed by you, they'd definitely be saying, you'd definitely be saying it's Sam from insert recruitment business here. And why shouldn't that be the same? Especially, definitely on LinkedIn, for God's sake. Because who doesn't list the company they're currently working for as an experience? Why stop there?
Yeah.
It's not about you. Like certain cases, you can build a personal brand. Of course you can, but be a team player. Be a team player. Represent the business, I say. What say you?
No, completely important. It's that thing, isn't it? Of personal brands can amplify an employer brand, and it's by having that joined up. That everyone, well, it's the thing is that everyone should be sharing those same values of what that business stands for, because ultimately a brand comes back to this is who we are. The actual realization of that is the way people convey, the way they speak, who they talk to, the way they present themselves in every engagement, whether that's online, whether it's on the phone, whether it's over email. All of those come back to a representation of the business itself. And if it's not in sync or it's contrasting, then that's not as beneficial as it could be.
Yeah, and I know that some people would feed back that, covertly, and say something like, "Oh, I don't want to use the company imagery because it's rubbish, or it doesn't represent me, or whatever." I would say to that, either come and talk to me about your branding, obviously, but if you would gladly, shout from the rooftops the fact that you work for KPMG or whatever, some big daddy, have the stones to do the same with the smaller, less well known, less respected, whatever company that you're working for at the moment. Because why couldn't the company that you're working for now be the KPMG of tomorrow? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Why not?
It's kind of like it's like those at school, right? Take it back to your school days, and you'd have some that would button up, and some that wouldn't button up, some that would tuck in, some that wouldn't tuck in. People like to express their individuality, and I think what's really important for brands is to kind of accept that. Increasingly, certainly online, these guys are trying to build, certainly recruiters, they're trying to build a personal brand. And sometimes, your branding is probably making them feel as though it's going to hold them back and let them down. Do you know what I mean? Like, so if I'm kind of like doubling down on, right, I am, a certain way on LinkedIn. I like my candidate base and my client base. That's all I connect with. They're a certain type of person too. But my business expects me to be this way. I'll give you an example. So, my recruitment business, we had accountancy and finance. That's what we were doing. I then decided that, to be honest, I was bored of that. I wanted to do tech and digital. So I set up the tech and digital desk. We hired in somebody, and it was me and him setting up that. And me and my former business partner would log heads because he'd be like, "No, they need to be in suits. You guys need to be wearing suits." And we'd be like, not a single fucking person that I speak to at any point on Teams or face to face wears a suit. I'm wearing a hoodie and we're wearing shorts in the summer and that kind of thing. That's what we're doing. And that became a bit of a sort of a pinch point at a point where we were, as a brand, a very traditional old kind of, the Times New Roman type, font-y type. And I ended up taking us through a rebrand because I was like, no, we're branching out of this now. And so we will be more relaxed. And these guys that I've got on the tech and digital desk, they're going to be in front of camera. And I don't want them in suits and ties. They're going to be speaking to devs and test analysts and things like that who aren't going to be interested in hearing from these guys unless they look and feel like them.
There you go. You're saying it yourself. It's audience.
Yeah.
Everything has to be driven by audience. So back to what you were saying about personal brand, and I totally take that on board, by the way. And I presume, tell me your experience, I presume that the candidates are now even talking about, I'm not sure that my personal brand fits with that particular business.
Yeah.
Something I've never heard, but it wouldn't surprise me to hear that other people have.
Well, you'd find that probably from
people's motivations have changed, right?
Well, you hear them talking about the company's values aren't the same as mine.
Well, this is it.
They're not forward thinking enough. But not my personal brand doesn't fit with them, which is very good.
No, but
very forward thinking.
There is that. Absolutely, there is that because you've got. I mean, I've spoken to recruiters and people who work within the RecTech space, right, who have kind of been open about, I like to sign off my emails with something stupid or something funny rather than your traditional best regards.
Best regards.
Yeah. Like there was one I got, it was out of the blue, and it was just like, something like, keep cutting it or something like that or whatever. And I emailed her back and was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she was like, I sign off all my emails with like some sort of funny, stupid slang. And then she didn't. And I was like, what happened? You've been told off? And she's like, well, yeah, I wasn't told not to do that anymore. No, I was like, I find that hilarious. That's brilliant. And then she's like, I sign off. She'd signed off one with like live, laugh, love and that kind of thing, like really like tongue-in-cheek, stupid shit.
Keep cutting.
And then she stopped doing it. And I was like, why? It was because the boss had told her, no, you're not doing that anymore. And not long after, she left the business. And one of the reasons was exactly that. What I want to do and how I want to operate in my personal brand doesn't align with this business anymore. You guys are you're going one route, I'm going this route. I need to find businesses that do that. And I think
that needs to be thrown in, then, doesn't it?
This is it. I think that's almost why
process. Who do we want working for us?
Exactly.
It works both sides, doesn't it? Because more and more people now are what would describe themselves as value driven.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of if you don't align, and that could be on perception of the business, could be brand, could be on that kind of approach of where, no, you must work this way and this is exactly the way we've always worked, versus people who want more freedom. It all comes back to the same idea in the end, doesn't it?
But this is it. If you're a recruitment agency and you're like, right, we like to consider ourselves to be forward thinking, we have a fully remote workforce and we allow people to, we don't KPI them on being on the phones. We allow them to communicate with their candidates and clients in whatever way they want. But then you go on the website and you check out the branding and the messaging online, and it's, we're a traditional agency, and we, it doesn't speak that.
Just conflicts.
And so, you're either lying to someone, whether it's yourself or whether it's to other people, you're lying to somebody there.
I would hazard a guess that most people are lying to themselves.
Yeah.
But that's, I suppose, how deep the brand runs, isn't it, as well? It's the case of people say things on the top level, and then as soon as you start digging into the detail, you get back to, oh, no, we say all that, but we don't actually mean it.
Yeah, that's right. That reminds me of some of the things that pop out a lot of the time in the what we do section of the thinking. And when they're thinking of values, what are our values? People always come out with quality and we like family with our clients, and I'm like, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. Quality should be a given, so that's not on the list. If you have to say you're a quality product or a quality service or whatever, come back again next week. But then making claims that are either useless or untrue, don't create values that you're aiming for. All right, by all means, create values that you're aiming for, especially if you're a new business, obviously.
But strive to.
But for the love of God and Sonny Jesus, actually do something about it. You know what I mean?
I love that. That's I saw a he was in the, it wasn't payroll, it was funding space, finance space. One man band, and kind of entered this space. And he was like, "Oh, I've just done my website. Can you have a look at it and give me some feedback?" Yeah, cool. So, yeah, I like it. And I clicked on the about bit, and it was literally something to the tune of, "Unless you're auditing me, you don't particularly care. But if you do care, click this link." And it was a calendar link to his diary. And I was like, that's brilliant, because that's you're either clicking on about because you're either trying to do some research on me to sell me something, or you're auditing me on like, who is he? I need to look at his background. But if you actually care about me and you want to know about me, click this link and let's have a chat.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love that. That's so that wouldn't scale out. Of course, it wouldn't scale out as a concept. But I thought that's really funny.
Please tell me you asked him later how many people had actually booked on. I'd love to know that.
No, I didn't. To be fair, no, we're due to pick up at the expo. We'll ask him how many. He's only launched it about 7 or 8 weeks ago.
Wait for the next episode. Everybody. We'll find out what happened there.
Well, I thought it was brilliant. I was like, that's really clever. I like that. You don't really care, but if you do,
now then, let's get back to audience. Let's get back to audience, because that made you giggle, and you thought, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
I'd be immediately like,
that is fucking cool.
That's going to stay at the top of my.
How many people, regardless of whether they were auditing him or not, how many people will that have rubbed up the wrong way? But the people that got rubbed up, he's not going to get on with them anyway. He's not going to enjoy working with them. They're not going to be a good fit. You know, client supplier.
Yeah.
We talked about, business and employees. You've got to be working with people that you gel with, people that are going to like you as a person as well as what you produce for them.
Right.
You've got to do that, and that's part of the branding process as well. But that is hardcore branding. That's ballsy.
Yeah, that's really kind of
ballsy.
like, this is what I am.
But even if they haven't clicked on him to talk to him, I bet some people that he really would like to work with have gone, I like this. Kid. I like this kid's shit.
Even if it's just,
I'm gonna do something about it.
That's fun. I like that. I'll remember that.
Something else.
That's it. I'll remember that. If nothing more, in a competitive world, I'll remember that. Yeah, what I was arguably one of UK's best sales trainers is Benjamin Dennehy, right? And he on this podcast made a very, very good point, which I reiterate all the time. In sales, we were always taught to cast the net far and wide. Qualify in as much as you possibly can, because you want a list of prospects 1,000 people long. Whereas he was like, in this day and age, you want to be doing the exact opposite. You want to be casting out and qualify out of your sales process as many people as you can, because you don't want the maybes and the, if you sold to me just right, or
it's not go for no.
I don't want that. I don't want that. I want this is perfect for me. Let's buy. And that was a good example of exactly that. Like you said, there would be people that have gone, who do you think he's funny? I think he's funny. Well, what a stupid thing that is. Yeah. I don't want to do business with you. I don't need to do business with you, and I don't want to do business with people like you. Yeah. I want to do business with the people that are going to be like, hey, that's funny. I remember that, And so, that kind of mentality for me, I think is it's got to grow more in sort of the coming years, because people buy that way now. You want to do business with people that are like you, or people that you like. That's
a very simple example is my dad, right? Who's a 70-year-old, about 70.
I don't think he would like being called a simple example, but go on.
Well, he is a simple
Say
example.
what you say.
He's a 78-year-old man, and he shares my disdain, dislike for a lot of the advertising that's on television these days.
Yeah.
But as I constantly remind him, he'll go, "What the hell is that about?" He'll do it all the time. What did that mean? And I just have to keep saying to him, mate, it's not aimed at you. It's not aimed at me. It's not even aimed at my son who's nearly 30. It's aimed at somebody in their early to mid-20s. That's why we think it's shit.
Yeah.
It's getting, and let's be fair, it is shit. But it's highly targeted. And things have to be these days because attention span is so short. When I first started designing for the web a long time ago, they said that you had 11 seconds to grab somebody's attention.
Much less than that.
Then it was 7. Then it was 5. Now somebody said the other day it's 2.5 seconds. 2.5 seconds to grab somebody's attention on whatever page they hit on your first on your website.
Yeah.
We ain't got time to hang about, boys and girls. We've got to, and visually, the visual. I went to a presentation on storytelling the other day. And apparently, the human brain, the human mind, forms an opinion on something visually I don't mean what's written. I mean how it looks in 0.4 of a second, which was frankly terrifying. You know what I mean?
It just highlights the importance of getting it right, doesn't it?
Well, that's a very uphill task, then, isn't it? Especially in a world where, like, the tech age that we're in now, you can target your exact prime customer, your ICP, down to granular detail, right? This age demo, this background, this type of economic background, this type of political stance, and then target them with that, right? Why go through all of that to then present them with a poorly branded product or service? You know what I mean?
I have to mention, just to say I did, in case anybody comes back to me later. We're talking about niche, and doing something daring, right? That can be a dangerous path. Let's just stay within the recruitment sector for a second. Say you were doing warehouse staffing for Amazon and God knows who else. You know, yes, your audience may be the younger people, but don't get carried away with the idea that you need to come up with something flash, something daring, you know, to grab their attention. Sometimes, and it goes back to what I said a bit earlier about borrowing or borrowing from others, from other businesses, or just giving your perfect client exactly what they need to feel comfortable to talk to you. Now, if that means looking very much like another business that is in your space or whatever, you know, mimicking them into a certain degree, you know, putting your own spin on it, but having the same kind of feel about it, that will, you know, convince the incoming viewer that, yes, I'm in the right place. This looks like a recruitment business for warehouse staff because I've been on one before.
Yeah.
Calm them. Because you come up with something, hey, you want to be working in a warehouse? They go, fuck no.
Yeah.
Not any warehouses you're
No,
aware
you
of.
are. Yeah. It's funny. There was a guy I was doing some again mentoring with, who built it was like a job app type thing, right? But his whole idea was he was trying to make it a social media product for kind of 16 to 24 demo, you know, for their first job. And really good guy, really knows his stuff. And we sat down and he was like, give me your honest opinion. And I kind of went, it just seems and feels different to Facebook and to LinkedIn and to Twitter and to every other social media channel. And I think you've gone too far the other way. Because when I don't use Twitter or X, right? I don't use it. I use Facebook. But when I do go onto Twitter to have a look at anything, everything's in the same place that it's supposed to be. The profile is in a certain place. The wall is in a certain place. The feed is in a certain place. Just like on LinkedIn, just like on, you know, on any other. Yours is all over the place, not all over the place, but yours is in completely different places. So immediately I'm like, oh, I don't get this. You know, I don't want to get in a car and be like, where's the indicator on this car?
Do you remember back in the early days of mobile phones? I used to enjoy getting a different type of mobile so I could have the fun of learning how to use it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that shit all ended in 2007.
Yeah.
Because the second I got an iPhone in my hand, that was it.
Yeah. This is how I want everything from now on.
I mean, I don't want this all to go out and start getting adverts for iPhone 16s. but I am but Google phone. You know, what is the Google phone called? Pixel, Samsung. Save your money. Don't bother fucking marketing to me because you've got no chance. Because I couldn't be asked to learn how to use one. Just couldn't be asked.
Like, maybe it must have been 2 or 3 years ago. I went to try and go from Apple to Samsung, and I lasted about 9 months, and then
That's
went
where
back.
that's where all your hair went.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I ended up with 2 phones then at that point.
Oh,
you then
hang on a minute. This is a very, very roundabout way of explaining why you had 2 phones, mate.
Really?
Yeah. So now my girlfriend calls me on this one, and my wife calls me on this one. Yeah. Problem solved.
Sorry,
yeah.
man, okay.
But no, you're right. People have this like thing for familiarity, and I think when you're a recruitment agency, yes, you want to be different. Yes, you want to differentiate yourself. Yes, you want to be kind of like eye-catching and all the rest of it. But at the same time, candidates and clients, to a degree, have a certain level of expectation. So when I jump onto your website, I expect there to be somewhere where I can see, if you're looking for a job, here's a list of our vacancies. If that's not there, immediately my trust metric is dropping.
Yeah.
You know, the likability might be still up here, but that's going to start to drop too. Hang on a minute. You're a recruitment agency. I just want to get a job. Where are your jobs? Oh, no, but watch this cool, trendy video first, and then watch this, and hear about our missions and values. And here's our CEO with a few words. You know,
Give a shit.
I don't care about any of this. Just give me what I came here for, then I'll find everything else.
It's like on websites, the word welcome should have been banned. As far as I was
You got WordPress to thank for that, though, haven't you? Welcome world.
Would have been banned.
Hello world.
About 15 years ago, there are still people whose first words on their website are "Welcome to insert business name here." Why? I'm going to introduce you to a phrase: value proposition. Right? Commit that to memory. Value proposition. The first thing anybody should read on your website is the reason they should stay. Tell them what they want to hear about what you can provide. Give them a reason to stay. Give them a reason to go, I'm on the right page here. And welcome to your fucking business name does nothing towards that goal. Stop it.
Nice high bounce, right?
Yeah.
The most frustrating thing is
most rubbery website in the world.
It's that thing comes back to measuring everything, doesn't it? You go onto a website, and if you've got that, you will see that your bounce rate is through the roof, which basically means that you've done the job in the first place to attract someone to you, but then they've gone, oh, fuck you. Go.
How long does it take to read "Welcome to BrandBoy"? It takes about 2.5 seconds, doesn't it? That's how long you've got to get somebody's attention.
Like, oh, that was nice. It's interesting. We don't think about these things, and actually, what it will always come down to is, yes, you could do it yourself, but if you're going to do it yourself, do all the learning and all the understanding that comes behind it first, right?
Yeah.
Or just pay a professional to do it for you.
And I always have to say as well, and I say this when I'm talking to new inquiries to BrandBoy, is I lay out the process, and there's a little bit more to it than I've given you today. I lay out the whole process of the thinking and the questioning that I go through with the client, give them the full gamut, and obviously the price and everything. And then I always say at the end, if we don't work together, if it ends up that this doesn't go ahead as a project, please, for the love of Christ, whoever you do work with, make sure they've volunteered a process like the likes of which I've just outlined. Yeah. Because if they don't, then you might as well do it yourself. Because it will have just as much relevance to your audience, and the audience is king. We've established that today.
True. That is very true. Here's your chance to plug. How do people get in touch with you? What stuff have you guys got going on at the minute? I know you wanted to mention some of the projects that you're working on.
Yeah, if they want to, anybody wants to talk about branding, it doesn't have to be to give me money. It doesn't have to be that we work together. I'm happy to talk to anybody. In fact, if you're auditing me, fuck off. But, if you really want to know about me, I don't have a calendar link. Go to brandboy.uk. My phone number is on there, which is an even better way of getting hold of me. Happy to have a chat with anybody that's got any questions, any issues, or if you want to look at your branding, it's fine.
Yeah, and then obviously one other business that me and Simon have got in commonality is a business called Raised, which you've heard me talk a lot about, kind of the different elements of fundraising and how tough it is. Well, our business exists solely to try and give everyone the same opportunity to turn that idea into a reality. Basically, you look at the stats, 1% of people trying to raise funding will raise it. If you're a female or from a disadvantaged background, those stats are far, far higher. We exist to try and change that. And that's a new business that we're currently working through. But more important with that regard is that even when you raise funding, 80% of those businesses still fail in the first 3 years. So it's like people look at branding as one journey and you go through that, and then people think, I'm just going to go and raise funding. that's not what you do in isolation. It's all part of bringing together a successful business. And then obviously, if you've got a successful business with the right structures, the right processes, and the right environment, it can be incredibly successful, and you can raise funding and you can do all these other things. But as a great example of a brand project that Simon took on, if you go and check out goraise.com, that will give you a kind of a visual representation of the brand we've created for that. But that's a really exciting prospect that hopefully we'll talk more about as time moves forwards.
And that's an interesting one because there's 3 fairly different audiences to appeal to with that brand identity. We've got founders, and they could be founders of massive different types. You know, somebody just has had an idea in the shower, like I did in 2020, and that's the first tippy toe into the startup world, all the way through to exiting founders. That's the breadth of founder. Then there's the investor. That's another audience, all the way from angel to private equity, and then we've got advisors. So how many different stripes have they got there? Whether it's financial advice, marketing advice, operational advice, whatever. Lots of different consultants and consulting businesses and whatever in that. All that has to be considered in your branding. Now, obviously, the low-hanging fruit is the founders and the investors. The advisors there are maybe a secondary, tertiary audience, but they all have to be considered. And it's a long process, but it's a process worth going through. Do that. Don't just the knee jerk. Oh, I saw something. I'll make it look like that. Considered.
And although we said at the beginning, don't focus on your favourite colour, bright green is one of my favourite colours, and the branding for Raised is bright green, so there is always an oxymoron.
Hence the hoodie?
No, this was just
it's far more vivid than that.
Yeah, no, this was just
That's
it's
more
raining
minty.
outside.
That's more minty.
It's a Monday, and
Minty Bundy.
and on that bombshell,
We'll end it there. Thank you for listening in once again, guys. New episodes drop every Wednesday, as you know by now, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you very much.
thank you.
There you go. Clap us out.
Hey.
That was good.
Thank you, mate. Talk too much, did we?
An hour and a bit.